satisfaction anyway.
Now, this was longer than the first original clip, the same song, which apparently is called Nothing Could Have Stopped Us. John feels it's a reflection on his time in Van Halen, and John says right here, and there's a quote from John, "I'm so proud of it, and it sounds so cool. Dave's voice sounds rad." And Ed had asked him if he could play it for him. He played it, and he said it was recorded somewhere around like 2014 or 5 years ago or so. And, you know, he said that it's not all acoustic, that the record does rock at some point. But something is going on here. Why would John 5 willy-nilly play a clip from an exclusive unreleased David Lee Roth solo album without permission to do so? John is a consummate professional guitar player. He has worked with Marilyn Manson, Rob Zombie, David Lee Roth. He has been in the business for years. Okay, so and he's a cognizant guy. He's a smart guy. Dave must want this to leak a little bit. I think Roth is on a campaign to get everybody super hungry for Van Halen or something, because why would this happen? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, John is not going to release any clips of that song unless he knows Dave is okay with it, right? So
Dave, he's playing it over Sirius XM airwaves.
Exactly.
That's
so
millions and millions of people.
I really think Dave is trying to get a vibe for Demand.
Yes. And,
you know, him and John were talking one day, and he's like, you know what, John? I know you love that stuff. Bozy, bozy, bop. Why don't you play it? Why don't you play it? I know you're doing some press rounds. Why don't you play it and see what the reaction is?
Right.
You know, maybe John was just so proud of it. He's like, Dave, look, can I play a clip? Are you going to kill me if I play a clip?
Right.
And Dave is like, fine, play a clip, though.
Because I don't think Dave can play a clip. I don't think Dave can promote anything. But I think if someone else lets it leak a little bit, I'm not in breach of my contract.
Right. I'm not John Five's mother.
Right. Exactly. So
yeah.
I think that's a little interesting there. So now, even more interesting, we all know Dave was a guest on Marc Maron's WTF What the Fuck podcast. Marc Maron, one of the biggest podcasters out there, okay, along with Joe Rogan and Adam Carolla, right? So this is one of the hottest podcasts of Marc Maron. Marc does a great job. So Marc's interesting because, you know, Marc's a comedian and he's a great interviewer. You know, he's just sort of, you know, like, I guess, charmed by Roth a bit. So Roth goes on there, and they're into all kinds of talk about all kinds of stuff, but we're going to just boil it down to the Van Halen stuff. So Dave is talking about his relationship with Eddie. He says there's got to be interaction, combustibility. No Eddie, no Dave. No Dave, no Eddie. There's got to be sparks. He didn't talk about what's going on in Van Halen. What are they doing, this and that. He got into the dynamics of the relationship, but I think he's got a little bit of an agenda here. So he gets into the old days. We were crosstown rivalries, and we hated each other with a vengeance. My material was simpler, like Johnny B. Good or simpler Stone songs, but really colorful. Lots of interaction with the audience. The Van Halens had craft. Man, did they have an arsenal of super batch Scotch craft. You could take a sip of that and go, whoa, somebody's 1,000 hours into the one shot. Together was combustible. But if you go ask Nitro, what do you think of glycerin? A little bland, transparent, but boom, put them together. And he's talking about putting his music and style together with Eddie's and Alex's, that they're really something. So, like Mark just throwing shit at the wind, he's a character. He's like, so, are you guys always at each other's throats? And Dave says, all the way up to the last phone call. And then he says, you can't sit down with the fellas and have a dinner? And he said, nope. Not even close. This is not a golf club. This is a little closer to the Wild Bunch, right? There is a fury and an antagonism, and what comes out of that is good. Oh, man, that's retina bursting. That'll change your fucking haircut. Now, you know Dave loves to, you know, play it up with the words and this and that, and he's colorful and he's funny. Let me tell you, he's entertaining, and he's hysterical. But then Mark started getting into the Van Halen breakup. Like, why did you guys break up? And then Dave said, why did it fracture? Because all rock bands fracture. It turns into diverse interests. People have the friction of time, and that friction is family, and that friction is sometimes it's partying, but I don't know if that's what really separated Van Halen. He says there were always creative differences. We never got along. It was beautiful, beautiful pairing of, you've seen cowboy movies where the guys are always sabotaging each other, but they're working to somehow accomplish something, and I think you'll see a lot of that in popular bands. So what I think he's doing here is he's really almost doing a little WWF. Like he's Hulk Hogan versus Rowdy Roddy Piper. Like, do I really think that Eddie and Dave fucking hate each other with a blind passion? I really don't. I think Dave is playing it up. Now, are they annoyed by each other? Yeah, absolutely. Are they difficult with each other? Yeah, of course. They're both a pain in the ass. You know, look, these guys are smart. They're businessmen. They've been in the music business for over 40 years. You know, come on. They're 64 years old at this point. They're not little kids. But, you know, they do know that they have a special chemistry together. As he says here, Van Halen's perfect. And I always sense that perfect would get back together. Perfect in its imperfections. Think of your most ruined jeans that barely are jeans. They're your favorite because of the holes in them. Your favorite part of the cowboy boots are the fucked up part. That kind of imperfection, we value that, and we still have it. It's in the music, and it makes the music more popular than ever. And he used that term wabi-sabi, which he talks about. Wabi-sabi, that is which is fucked up, is beautiful. He used Keith Richards as a perfect example of what wabi-sabi means. So that was kind of cool, and he was talking about their parents. He said he got along better with Jan Van Halen than he ever got along with the brothers. Now, I think that's kind of funny, because I think Jan Van Halen has a reputation for being a kind of a sweet, old, lovable musician type of guy. Fun-loving dude. Everybody seems to love this guy. He seemed to have a nice personality. So I would imagine that, he probably got along with him great, It's interesting how he talks about the two of them put together, and then he was saying how he thought the Hollywood Bowl shows were the last two shows Van Halen played in the early fall of 2015 were some of the best shows we've ever done. I remember walking off that deck twice in a row going, oh yeah, that was some of my best of my career. Now, the weird part about that whole thing was, if you remember that show, he was kind of like getting sentimental toward the end and telling Eddie, some of the best times of my life were on this stage with you and all that stuff. And then when Mark asked him if there was any love between them, he says, oh, we love to scrap. Are you kidding? Put any one of the brothers in a room like myself, and you can put me in a room naked and come back and there will be conflict or something like that. He's going on and on and on. And then he was saying it's kind of like a kitchen in a restaurant. Out in the front of the house, it's very, relaxing. And in the back, it's like punk rock screaming, everybody going crazy. And I don't know if that's really so much the case. I think the truth is the brothers run the show, and Dave's kind of kept on the outs. If anything, he's frustrated. I think he's got a contract. I think he can't really talk about stuff. I think he can't really make music or tour. I think
the restaurant analogy is a good one.
Yeah.
Because Van Halen's always been that way, especially when they broke up in 84, 85. It was like, how can that be? These guys were always buddy-buddy.
Right.
Nothing was wrong.
Right. Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
Because the front of the restaurant, everything's working fine.
Sure.
In the back, the cooks are ready to kill each other.
Right, that's true, and that's
so. I do think there is some truth.
No,
to that
there
analogy.
is truth to that. That's for sure. But I think Dave is trying to build a thirst for a reunion. I personally think Dave is looking for one last big bang, and he's drumming it up huge. That's what he's known for. He's good for selling stuff. He's trying to make it like it can combust at any moment, and he's trying to create an urgency, and when he gets with them, it's like special. It's almost like a limited edition band or something like that, So I think that he's trying to, help Van Halen in this way, I don't know if they really argue. What are they arguing about? They're not doing anything. I mean, how could they possibly argue if they're not writing music or touring? I mean, what the fuck are they arguing about? They're not doing catalog releases. They're not releasing any fucking merch. I mean, there's nothing to argue about.
Come on, man. If you're in a room with David Lee Roth for 5 minutes, is he not going to drive you batty?
Like I said, I think that they get annoyed with each other, and sure, they get on each other's nerves, but there's not a subject to argue about because there's nothing going on. They're not working.
Well, that's what they're going to argue.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what they're arguing about. I don't know. I don't know, but it's interesting to see what's happening here now. Hollywood Bowl, the best shows. I don't know. I mean, from what I saw, they were good. I don't know, the best of their career. I don't know. I'm telling you, I really thought that he thought that was the end of the band at that point, and he just had that vibe when he was talking. But I don't know.
Right. Well, it could have been because maybe he realized that maybe they're not touring again. It wasn't going to be a slam dunk.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Dave probably thought the whole thing ran its course. We got back together. We did a big tour. We did an album. We did a big tour. We did a live album. We did a tour. Like, what else are we going to do? I don't know. What do you make of this? What did you make of the podcast?
Well, I like the podcast.
Okay.
And I hesitantly listen to it because I know how Dave gets. But I will tell you that Mark reined him in.
Yeah.
He'd ask questions. If Dave started going off on a tangent, he'd interrupt him and ask him a question like, what do you mean by that? Or like at one point he was like, yeah, I know, but my original question was, and then he would ask him the original question.
Right.
To get Dave to focus, or Dave would say, like, well, it's like this and that. And Mark would be like, well, what do you mean? What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Right.
He really was getting him in to focus. And Dave liked it because at one point he's like, wow, this is really good. I don't normally talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think Mark hit some really interesting topics. He reined Dave in. I thought it was one of the better ones. It was better. I liked it better than when Dave was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I mean, Rogan let that guy ramble for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yep. Good point.
And was like, you know what? I'm going to let him ramble. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to let him ramble again. And then I'm going to take the best clips of that rambling and throw them up. And that's what people will listen to.
Yeah.
Which honestly is the best way to absorb Dave.
Right.
Because you really got to be dedicated to sit through all that. But Mark did not let him ramble too much.
No.
Or let him ramble about interesting topics or topics he hadn't spoken about before.
Right.
And it was only like an hour and change long.
Right.
So I thought he did really well, and it was one of the better interviews for me, anyway, with Dave.
Right. I just wish someone would just say, well, is there ever going to be a future with you guys? Or, like, I don't expect Mark to start asking about archival material, but, like, are you moving forward? Or, like, where are you at right now? Like, I'm just...
Well, he did ask him. He point blank asked if he was going to play with those guys again.
Yeah.
And Dave was like, well, I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks. Bozy bop.
I know, he did his bozy bop.
And he totally went off on that. So Mark asked the question.
He did.
Dave sidestepped the answer.
Yeah, he's a sidestepper. He loves it. So, speaking of sidesteppers, oh my God, Sammy just can't stop talking about Van Halen. Oh my God, Sam. So anyway, Sammy was in Classic Rock magazine. He was also in Planet Rock, another magazine. These are European magazines. Sam is getting himself in the red here as he goes off talking about Van Halen. First of all, he started off that he's afraid to contact Ed and Al now because he thinks that they would think that he's trying to get back into the band, and that would be the reason for his call. The Red Rocker says he's happy to play old Van Hagar tunes with the Circle because they, quote-unquote, play them as good as anybody. Now, if he honestly thinks that he plays Eddie and Alex's music as good as Eddie and Alex, that can't be true, but he does play them very well, that's for sure. But he says this quote, and this is unbelievable. It's almost like I don't want to be asked to do it, meaning like a Van Halen reunion, because I'd feel like I had to do it, but I really don't want to. I'm sorry, I don't. And it's like...
He's so full of crap.
It's unbelievable.
He's afraid to call him about a reunion. He really does. Believe me. If Ed called him tomorrow and said we're on.
His bag is already packed.
So Ed would be like, hello? Because Sam would be on the way to the airport. I mean, please. I really, you know what? I really think Sam believes this stuff himself. Like he believes the dates he calls out in concerts are correct.
Oh my God! Yeah,
I
know.
really like. I think he's telling these stories like so much. He believes himself.
I agree. I agree. It's incredible.
Whatever, Sam. Good luck to you.
I know. He's unbelievable. So then he also says he got into a little bit about Dave. He's talking to Planet Rock magazine, and he says, "I don't respect Dave's artistry, but I do think he's clever and a great showman. And what he did with Van Halen in the early days was fantastic. Van Halen couldn't have made it without him." Okay, that's a nice comment. Then he says, "God bless Dave, but he